Karen Strassman is a Hollywood film and television actress and an accent coach. She actually teaches actors how to speak with a foreign accent, like my own German accent, for example. This episode is quite different though. With Karen, I felt comfortable enough to talk about topics that I don't usually talk about. So we basically talked about acting, how to speak with a foreign accent, different cultures, but also out-of-body experiences, medbeds, aliens, and other quite unusual topics. It was again quite experimental for me, so I'm really interested in your guys' feedbacks. And please hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it. I've seen that you're French American, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm actually Danish French American.
Danish French American.
Danish, yeah. My mother and my whole mother's side of the family is Danish, so I'm actually going home to Denmark soon this summer to see some of my family because I haven't been back for a while. And then when I was a student, I moved to France and I lived there I used to say I lived there for half of my life, but but I lived there for a very good portion of my life, and I'm bilingual, and I'm French. I have a French passport.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved back to America a while back now, and now I live in America again.
Okay, may I ask where in America?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, of course. As an actress,
Best
probably
for business. It's although right now, I mean, they're shooting in all over the states. You know, New York, Atlanta. They have a lot of studios around, but this is kind of the hub.
Okay. Yeah, I figured. So what's your favorite place, actually, if you have these three backgrounds, where you like to be the most, like, except for, looking at your career or your job?
My favorite place, location on the globe?
Yes.
I feel like each place that I've lived is really, really special in and of itself. And I don't know if I can, they have different qualities. Paris is one of my homes, and I have so much history there. I go back and walk the streets, and that's where I kissed that man in that cafe, and that's where I sat in that cafe learning my lines, and it's beautiful. It's magnificent, and it's sort of a very spiritual city. It's just beautiful. Denmark is like I have all my childhood memories there, and when I hear somebody speaking Danish, I kind of ha ha ha, and that's home in that kind of way. And the people are so lovely and so kind and so playful and sweet. Los Angeles is just a creative boon. It's so stimulating, and it's where I get to do what I love. And people from all over the world move to Los Angeles because they want to create and because they want to tell stories. So there's a lot of people here from all over the world with all of these creative inspirations, and I have beautiful, beautiful friends here, and I love it here as well. And then there's places that I've traveled. I spent my teenage summer in the Alps, in Annecy, in France, and I have just magical memories there. I think it's one of the most magical places on earth. And I always feel Hawaii is magical, and there's a lot of places yet on my bucket list. I had a boyfriend in Rome for a couple of years, and I would go and sit on the back of his Vespa and Vespa all over Rome, So I think so many places that I've been to have imprints of life, and beauty and love and growth,
Yeah, they do. They do. I feel like the cultures are very different if you compare European culture with US culture.
Very.
You see that the same? And how do you personally fit in there, in between there? Like, do you feel more like an American, or do you feel more European?
I feel like a European American. I mean, I I feel very European living in America, but I also know that I am very familiar with it. I, also grew up as a kid in Washington, D.C., so I went to school in America. But I never felt like America was my home. Um, I've never really felt like one place on the globe is my home, almost like
Mm-hmm.
Earth is sort of a foreign place to me. Like maybe I came from somewhere else. I think I know a lot of people who sometimes feel that way, but there's not one place it's like, oh, this is home. But I find, you know, beauty and wonderful things in each place I've lived. And yeah, I think when I'm here, I feel the European part of me that's different from America, but I also know how to drop in and be present in America. And, and when I go home anywhere to Europe, I feel at home. But I'm also aware that I have a lot of American culture in me. I think I'm a mutt.
That's cool. So, have you been to Germany?
Yes, I have. Um, I been to a bunch of different places. I love Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my aunt, who's a dear, beautiful, magical soul who's recently passed away, she used to live in Honest, Germany, the very tip of Germany, a part of Germany that used to be Denmark. And then
Mm.
at some point, the Germans took it over, and it's this little boating town called Honest, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just beautiful. And I've, had stints in Munich and Berlin. I shot a project in Berlin a few years ago. So, and I've been to Cologne.
I lived there. I used to
You
live
know,
there. Yeah,
yeah,
I lived there for about 4 years. It was very interesting.
I loved it there. I didn't get to stay too long, but it was cozy and people were warm and kind.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you like it there?
Yeah, a lot. People in Cologne are very, very different from other parts of Germany. I mean, I just perceive them as more humorous and a little bit more friendly. Like, for example, I was sitting in a restaurant and I was eating a soup, and then there was like a young lady bringing me her bread for no reason. She just gave me her bread and then moved on, and it's like a funny thing that wouldn't happen in any other city in Germany. But yeah, in Cologne it's kind of like that, and they have like a funny slang that sounds a bit English. So from there's several German dialects, and the dialect of that area, Cologne, sounds a bit English, and it's quite interesting.
Mm, fun. Yeah, I met lovely, lovely people there. I really enjoyed being there. And Berlin was just the art and the culture was just felt like it was very experimental and very interesting. It was really interesting to be there. And I found people to be very kind and helpful. Um, yeah, I mean, but it's a different vibe, coming to Denmark.
Mm.
Denmark is such a fun place, when I growing up, we'd go to Faaborg, a little island in Denmark that still
Hmm.
has all those thatched roof houses. And my aunt is just very friendly, and she would talk to everybody. So we'd go into a grocery store, and we'd be standing in line, and all of a sudden, all these women would be discussing recipes, and all of a sudden, the cashier line would just stop. And the cashier would stop working, and all these women gathered around the cashier. Yeah, this is what I do for my recipe, and this is how
Hmm.
I make my frikadelle, and I add a little bit of this, and my meatballs, and I add a little bit of this, and it's very different from the culture in America, where it's just like move ahead, move to the next thing, don't stop, don't slow up the line. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
Oh, that's interesting because what I can clearly say, at least is my perception, that in the US people are more talkative regarding small talk,
yes,
whereas if I compare that to Germany, it's not really like that. And it's funny because Digistore24, my software company, we have around 200 employees from all over the world, and we had this meeting in Zurich, this big team meeting, and then we tried to bring the cultures together a little bit. And so we had a trainer trying to teach our staff like the cultural differences, and the way he described it was very funny. He said peaches versus coconuts. So like a coconut is really hard and hairy outside and kind of unfriendly, but if you somehow get to the inside, then it's all, sweet and nice. And with the peaches, it's the other way around. The peaches are like, from the very beginning, they're very friendly and very animated and very, and it just feels like, we're friends, like on an instant. But if you go deeper, then you're like, you notice, especially if you're a coconut, you notice like, we're not really friends. So I just misinterpreted that, and this can actually lead to, let's say, misunderstandings, to say the least. And it's actually sometimes difficult for both of the sides. So a peach would be like very irritated meeting a coconut, and vice versa, if that makes sense. And I would say Europeans, and especially Germans and Eastern Europeans, tend to be more coconut-ish, and Americans are a little bit more peachy.
Mm-hmm. I would agree 100%. It's so funny. As a teenager, when I first went to France, and I'd spent a lot of time in the American culture, and I think I have a personality. I've grown up with a personality default of like wanting to say and do the right thing a lot, which I think I've shed over the years as I've gotten older. But as a teenager, like I wanted to say and do the right thing, and the American culture is very like, "Hi, how are you?"
Yeah.
It's very much like that. And I went to France like that, like, "Bonjour, comment ça va? Je m'appelle Karen." That very like sort of very overly open kind of thing.
Yeah.
The French culture was just like, "Ça va bien, et toi? Ah bien.
Yeah.
Rennes, je suis contente de te rencontrer, c'est bien. Oui, and I would feel like, what did I do wrong? And I turned them off. And that culture, they just don't play that game. And what was so cool is having been sort of indoctrinated to the American culture in high school, because I went to high school in America. It was such a relief for me to land in France and realize that I didn't have to try so hard, and that I could just be with French people, and over time we would get to know each other. So I didn't have to force like, what do you do? What do you do in life? But they had this thing where we would just be together. I would be with these groups of younger friends, and we would just hang out together. And I realized, I don't have to put on a show and how are you? And I can just be with them. And then little by little, we'll get to know each other. And if we like each other, good. If we don't, then we go our separate ways. And, the French are a little bit on the extreme of that sometimes, especially the Parisians. But, they do say about the French, like once you do get to know somebody, you have a real friend.
That's a coconut.
But they're very coconutty, yeah, in that way, totally. But it's been nice for me to have that balance, so that being back in the States, I don't have to be that way here anymore, and I can let other people be that way. It's when in America, it's just part of our culture. People say, "Hi, how are you?" But they're not always really asking. It's not, it's just instead of "Hello, good to see you," it's that reflex to say that in the culture, which I always find a little bit disconcerting. But it's a cultural thing,
Yeah. To me, it's very interesting because, in Germany, you're also like taught not to be too friendly in the beginning, because you're more supposed to be skeptical. And if someone smiles at you, probably they want to sell you something or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. So for me, it was also like when I came to the States, was also very interesting to see everyone like, "Hey, how you doing? How you feeling today? Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? I'm great. I'm fine." And I don't really want to make fun of them, but it just was like my perception was so different compared to Germany. But yeah, it like as a German, or as a coconut, you should know that it doesn't mean anything. Like people can say, "Hey, how are you?" And for fun, I just respond with, "Hey, how are you?" So I don't answer the question. I just throw it back at them like, hey, how are you? And then I see them a bit irritated, like, oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Or they don't notice.
Yeah, or they don't notice at all. But I think it's cool because people are more polite. Like, for example, when I went to the airport in Miami or LA, people were very polite, when they were standing in line. Whereas in London, for example, like everyone would try to get in front of me and I would really have to fight for my spot. That doesn't really happen in the US, and I appreciate that. So
That's true.
It's really cool. And the most rude area in Germany is Berlin, believe it or not. Like, for example, there's people speaking through these speakers in the train station and giving people orders. And everywhere in Germany, it's like at least normal. It's like, please mind your step, please mind the gap, etc., etc. And in Berlin, it's actually okay to go like, hey, you we're late because of you. Step away, get your and stuff like that. And this is okay and normal to say in Berlin, like for the official speaker in the train station. But it's not usual in other parts of Germany. So I was very surprised by that because I'm not from Berlin. It was kind of funny.
It's surprising of the Germans because usually there's two things I want to say on this conversation, but I'm going to go to one thing first. I'll come back with the other. One is just I think you know this about me. I'm a dialect specialist.
Yes,
I specialize in dialects, and part of when I coach people on dialects or work with them myself for roles on TV or video games or whatever, it's really interesting how the dialects kind of meld with, it's not just a sound and a voice, but they meld with the culture. And, one of the things that is very interesting with the American culture is we have, if you go to yawn, there's a hinge in the back of our jaw that opens.
Mm-hmm.
And American language is one of the only dialects that I'm aware of where we speak with this open hinge. And so our sound is very open from here and here. And it's very much here and in the chest. So it's got this open quality to it that's very typical of our culture. Like, whereas you go to German accent, and German, they never open the jaw. And actually, German accent, it stays inside the mouth. So when you're talking with the German accent, everything stays inside the mouth, very private, inside, and it doesn't show, Americans are like, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
The German, it stays inside the mouth. What is interesting with the German accent also is that it is a bit choppy. So,
yes.
In accent like the French accent, which is inside the mouth, is still very private, but it's got a flowing thing like this because they've got the culture and the food and everything like this. So it's very much a flowing thing like that. But with the French accent, you see, sounds are relatively choppy like this, you see. And everything inside the mouth. And the jaw, it does not open, not at all. And then you go to London or not England, and they're the same way. So they don't open the jaw. And a lot of the language stays inside the mouth because they're just not as open and like outwardly outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
In England, it's also the same thing. They're going to take some time to get to know you. So the language is very private. It stays inside the mouth that way. And then you have something like Italian. I'm going on a tangent because it's fun. When you have something Italian, which is this warm Mediterranean. And in Italian, literally, the language moves forward. So it's a little bit more open. It stays inside the mouth because they're a little bit tricky, these Italians. They're not going to share everything. But then there's also push forward. And it goes forward like this. Your Italians, there's a movement forwards because it's a heart and it's a very open culture. It's like that. Then you go back to the German culture. And it's very much a private inside there, and so it's really fun when working with dialects to see like these conversations that you and I are having about cultures and about people. They're really reflected in the dialects. Also the temperature of the countries and things like that. If it's cold, Russian, also Eastern European countries, they tend to talk more in back of the mouth because it's very cold.
Yes.
Also, Russian interesting because government very long time watching Russian people, so Russian not everything back there, they talk back there. Also, it's very cold. So, whereas in Italy, they open the mouth. Is it like that? It's hot, it's okay. But with places where it's cold, they're not opening mouth as much. No. So it's just fun to
that's cool. Yeah.
This conversation.
There's like a direct correlation between the culture and kind of like the way they speak. It's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, with German, you got both parts. You got parts that are really hot. Some, at least in the summer, like I'm in Munich now, and people from Bavaria are very different compared to, let's say, people from Hamburg.
Bavarians are fun. They're
a
little boisterous.
Yeah, and they speak very differently. Like the German is very
Can you do a
different.
Bavarian accent or?
Yeah. You mean speaking Bavarian German English?
Either,
you mean that?
Or however you do it. Like how do they feel?
Oh yeah, it would be like if I would say, wann kriege ich was zu trinken? When will I get a drink? Wann kriegen was zu trinken? Wann kriegen was zu trinken? Wann kriege ich was zu trinken? So it's a bit more like wann kriegen was zu trinken. Yeah. So it's a bit more like going forward, like you mentioned with Italian. So yeah, but Bavaria is also close to Italy.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because I live in Switzerland, and in Switzerland it's very different. Like the way they speak is also very different.
How do they speak?
Oh yeah, like so for example, you would say in Switzerland you just live for paying the taxes. You would say in German, in der Schweiz lebst du nur dafür, die Steuern zu bezahlen. In der Schweiz lebst du nur dafür, die Steuern zu bezahlen. In der Schweiz ist das Leben nur dafür da, dass du zahlen musst Steuern. It's a bit different, right?
Yeah.
It's so hard actually. As a German, you cannot understand Swiss German really.
Interesting.
It's super hard, and it's like, for example, kitchen is in German Küche, is in Swiss German Küche.
Yeah, it's completely different.
It's very different, and people are very different. But there's like some similarities between Germans and Swiss people, but they like to make fun of each other, and I'm in between. It's very cool.
Do you speak French as well, living in Switzerland?
I used to speak French, and yes, there is a French part in Switzerland, but I forgot about it because I didn't like my French teacher, and so I was too stupid to realize that it would be an advantage for me to learn to stick with my French. But it's kind of sad, but I still think I can learn it. I actually grew up German Korean, so I'm half Korean. So I learned a little bit of Korean, and man, it's also very interesting. The culture is very interesting there. I mean, they have some similarities with Germans, but they're more about not losing their face. So they're very ashamed. Like Asians are very ashamed for some reason, for everything. And they're afraid to admit, any types of mistakes or anything. The craziest part is Japan. In Japan, it's you would rather kill yourself than making a mistake. It's not that way in Germany. Like I can work with Germans very well because they're very direct, and you can say like both ways. You can say what went wrong, what went well. You can do that easily, but with With Asian people, it's harder because
Yeah.
they don't want to admit anything, and it doesn't matter if they're from India or from Japan. It's just not cool for them to admit that they made a mistake. Like, but if that happens, then nobody's responsible. So it's very hard to figure out if anything is wrong. Hey, how you doing? Fantastic. I'm doing fantastic. Everything is great. Yeah. But this went wrong. No, everything is great. Everything is okay.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I am. As you probably know, I've done a lot of anime. As a visual artist, I've spent years and years doing a lot of Japanese anime. And so I've worked with a lot of Japanese clients, and it's very interesting because, as an actor in the booth and the client is, giving the director information, and it's funny because they're always, if they want something different, they have a hard time saying it. They're like, it's very good. It's very good. Can you maybe do a little bit more happy, but a little bit more, but very good, very good. And as an actor, we're always looking, okay, what do they want? What should I? And so you're kind of having to, okay, they like it, but they don't actually like it, like they want it different. and there's this sort of, you have to listen through the culture very much for those little signs. Yeah, it's fascinating. Did you spend time in Korea, or is your mother or father Korean?
My mother is Korean, and I spent a little bit of time there when I was a child. But it's very, very interesting there, because when I went there, I was told that I only ate watermelons, so I was on a watermelon diet because they were the best. That was the best tasting food, actually for me. And I played volleyball like from morning till night, and I wish. I mean, I can still read and write, but I kind of forgot to speak fluently as well, just like French.
Do you understand it when people around you speak Korean?
A little bit. So I'm picking up some words. But it's also interesting, like, how different Thailand is. Have you been to Thailand?
No, it's on my bucket list. I've heard so many beautiful things about Thailand.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so cool. Like the fruits and the landscape and the sea. It's so nice. Especially Phuket. It's really cool. If you like Muay Thai, this sport, Thai boxing, you can watch it there. It's so cool. But it's so interesting because they have little kids actually fighting. It's so weird. Like they have this way before the West started trying to make LGBTQ stuff popular. They had in Thailand, they have this ladyboy culture. So a lot of people there, a lot of guys there are ladyboys basically. And they look more perfect than the women there. But this is also how you can spot them, basically. So it's interesting for me that they have this culture of fighting. So, which is a very, let's say, I would say it's a lot of male energy. But at the same time, they have these ladyboys everywhere. And I never understood that. But it's one of the secrets of life, right?
Yeah, it's I think, as I continue to evolve and mature, I just love observing all of the differences and uniquenesses of us human creatures, and kind of just moving about, on this planet and in the world, and just kind of, even here in Los Angeles, just kind of not making anything right or wrong, but just kind of observing it, go, oh, that's how they function. Oh, that's that kind of creature. Oh, they're on this path, or they're just kind of, and it's interesting to just rewinding to the conversation we were having before about the coconuts and the peaches.
Yeah.
Again, I think just sort of on my own personal journey, I think something that I found with myself is, moving out of that thing that I was when I was younger, trying to fit in or say and do the right thing. I think I've kind of left that behind a lot. When you get older, suddenly certain things don't matter as much. But what I have found, just also on my own journey of getting closer to my own heart, is I find that little by little I can kind of go anywhere and just settle down and just gently look somebody in the eye wherever they're from. And if they're present enough in a given moment, if we're both not in this, just have a recognition of, hello, other human being,
Mm.
and if I can
Yeah.
take the time to slow down and, not try and impress, not intrude in cultural boundaries, but just look them in the eye and say, in my heart, just not even say it out loud, but just in my heart, hello, fellow human. There's something that is felt and transmitted and a kind of understanding. And I really enjoy as that can happen. And I think that's also going to be as the earth continues to evolve. We're going through so much chaos right now, which I believe is necessary. But I think as the
Mm.
earth continues to evolve, I think one of the points of success of us learning to get along and function together is to acknowledge, to go back to, wait a minute, we are all human beings and we have that in common. And we're so different, and it's not bad that we're different, because that's what makes the world go round. I mean, that's the
Mm.
different colors, that's what makes life so colorful. And I don't have to be like somebody else, or I don't have to choose to be like that, but that is a color, the coconut and the peach are so different, but how fascinating and cool that they both exist on this planet, along with a banana and a papaya and a
Hmm.
prickly pear, and the sea urchins and, jaguars and peacocks and, sharks and poisonous scorpions. But how fascinating that all these things exist on the planet. Should we rid the planet of scorpions? Might be a less
Yeah.
interesting place, Anyway, just going back to that cultural thing, I love when there is this quiet acknowledgement. Oh, we're both, hello, human being. Hello from my heart, just not being said, but just a quiet thing. And I think something that just makes my heart so full is wherever I travel in the world where that can happen is just the sweetest thing ever, And then and then you were saying, where do I feel like home? When I can find that
Mm.
quiet connection in an airport with somebody who's just looking at them in a little, you know, I see you and I honor you, hello, beautiful soul. We're all little souls, grand souls in these human, um, avatar meat suits, and that brings me great joy when that little experience can happen anywhere in the
It's
world.
funny. It's funny that you mentioned it, because this is also how, when I talk amongst my friends, I also mention that a lot. Like, okay, we're wearing these funny meat suits that need care, sleep, food, drinking, going to the toilet, etc., etc. And sometimes I think, maybe we live in a simulation. Have you thought about that?
Oh, all the time. I have it I look at life a lot like it's a video game.
Mm.
I'm in this section of the video game and I have to complete this level. Okay, I have this level to learn, or, and then I can complete this level and get to this, Sometimes I'm driving around in my car in Los Angeles and I'm like, wow, I'm just driving around the grid of a video game. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Are you actually looking for glitches in the matrix?
hmm I love those. I
Did you
love
find
those.
any?
Um, what I find, there's a couple things that I find. Yeah, occasionally, definitely. Sometimes I feel like I have a glitch of I don't know what I just said or you know,
Mhm.
but a huge, fantastic, I wouldn't know if I would call it a glitch in the matrix, but as an actor, I was going to say as an artist, but I have a hard time having the arrogance to call myself an artist, because I know some true artists and I don't know if I'm really that. But as a creator, actor, I was just on stage in a play this past week and just having a blast. one of the plays I was in was about 18 minutes long. It was just me and another actor.
Mm-hmm.
And fascinating thing happened this weekend because we're getting into a place where we know it really well. So I'm not in this place of being hyper conscious of what's my next line, where the mind is going very fast. But because I'm more and more familiar with it, I'm able to sort of drop in. And what happened in one of my last performances is that time and space just slowed down. And I almost felt like I was in a dream, noticing that I was in a dream. And I'm like, oh, I'm in a scene, but it's real. And I was saying my lines, but there were these moments when it was almost like, some people say in a car accident, sometimes a couple that I've had, where everything goes so fast, but sometimes it feels like everything goes so slowly
Oh,
within
yeah.
a few seconds. And I experienced that on stage this weekend, where everything was going really fast and the pacing of it. I just felt like, ooh, and everything felt in my experience like it was just slowing down. All of a sudden, like I was looking at the actor and watching his eyes blink and watching him look at me and feeling his heartbeat. And we weren't physically slowing down on the outside, but my experience is that this, like, not a black hole, but this thing in the time-space continuum just slowed down. And I could perceive all of these teeny tiny little details while we were, on stage together, almost like, they talk about, monks that learn how to dodge bullets, or the Matrix, where it's like, and I had that experience on stage. And sometimes when I'm in a creative space, there's magical things like that happen, which is one of the things I love about being a creative person is we also get to slow down time and space for the audience sometimes too. If we're really, really, really present, all of a sudden the audience can, leave a TV show or a movie or a play and go, God, I lost track of time. Or I don't know if that was 20 minutes or 2 hours. So I think we do have the capacity to experience that. And I think it's sort of happening more and more too, as we learn to get more present. And also I think as time speeds up.
Oh, yeah. And it's like life is about those moments. This is where, this is where you say, oh, this is why life is worth living and why life is great, to be in that kind of flow. Yeah. And another thing is, it feels like a lot to me that the brain is just an antenna versus the processor that computes everything and is like a supercomputer, because we get a lot of downloads. Like, it doesn't matter if you're an artist, or in my case, I'm an entrepreneur. A lot of information just feels like it's being downloaded, and all you have to do is like getting in the right zone, getting on the right frequency, so you're able to transmit and receive certain information. And that's why meditation is so good, because it trains you to adjust your antenna, if that makes sense.
Yes, I'm 100% with you.
And I think you do the same thing on stage, kind of. And I believe that if you do all these, like, other cultures very well, and you do dialect and accent trainings, etc. So I think what you're doing, like on a brain level, is that you're adjusting to a slightly different frequency.
Yes.
That is like that you perceive in this kind of cultural and language, and then you just work from that frequency, and then you the way you speak and your mimic and your body movements are kind of like
like adjusting to that specific radio station, tuning into it. It's so interesting that you're saying that, because I have a dear friend who I just have so much affection and respect for. His name is Jose, and he is literally a Mayan timekeeper, a Mayan elder. And he grew up as a child in Guatemala and was acknowledged as in the lineage of reincarnations of Mayan timekeepers. And so he walks the planet as a he won't use these words himself, but as a holy man and as a shaman. And
Mm-hmm.
he, and I've always said, oh, I'm just an actor and I just do accents and stuff like that. And he's like, no, 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 because one of the things he does is he time travels.
Uh-huh.
He bilocates and he trains people to do that. And he said to me, no, actually what you're doing is very much like travel and bilocation, because you do have to tune into these different frequencies in order to do it. And he says, that's what you're doing, which I just find fascinating. But
Cool.
I think, so what you're saying is, it's like, I agree with you so much. And I think you're right. And I think wherever we go, being able to do that. And then in terms of wisdom and knowledge that we can download, I think it's the exact same thing. And I also think that there's, we've been trained in our culture and almost indoctrinated to value the mental. And I think that there's other parts of our being that can perceive, like I perceive a lot from here with my heart, and a lot of people I know
Mm-hmm.
feel things with their gut. And a lot of people say that parts of the brain are also in the gut. And I think we can start to learn, like as an artist, we perceive a lot with the heart. And part of my personal training is learning to get out of my head
Mm-hmm.
and use other intuitive perceptions. And I think in terms of you talking about receiving downloads, it's not just mental, like it's mental is involved almost to translate the downloads, but I think that there's other perceptions that we have and even parts of the brain that we're starting to use, like you said, in terms of getting these downloads and tuning into frequencies and meditations that will become more and more available to us.
Yes. And I think a good way to learn that, to train your intuition, is to start meditating. And I think it's very difficult for people because we're used to all this noise, that information, noise meaning not just noise that you can hear, but also a constant flow of information that keeps you in your head. But like what you really have to do is shut that part of yourself down and stop perceiving mental information, like notifications or messages or scrolling through Instagram and social media. You have to shut it down and just be silent and explore the silence. And then you can go inside of your mind and you can discover a whole new universe.
Yeah, 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 100%. Yeah. Sven, do you have techniques that you use to do that you prefer? Like,
oh yeah, I do the Wim Hof breathing.
I love Wim Hof. I do it too.
Oh, you do it too.
Uh-huh.
That's cool. Yeah, I like like when I really shut my breathing off for a few minutes, and then I'm like it feels like I've taken drugs.
Yes.
And then I'm like really dizzy.
Yeah.
And this is where I try to explore the mind a little bit and to kind of experience new areas. And because I think if you can bring your body to some extreme, to any kind of extreme, be it cold, be it being partly in your dreams, being without breath, then and without oxygen for a while, then I think you can explore new things and get in touch with other parts of consciousness, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool that you like Wim Hof. I love that technique. Yeah. Do you do it every day or once in a while, or?
So I do the breathing every day.
Wow.
I do cold showers every day, yep. Ice baths, just how I can do it. Like if it's close to me, if it's anywhere close to me, I like to do that. Like when you're traveling Thailand, for example, you cannot really do that usually, unless there's like a cryo thing, cryo spa, cryo pool, whatever. But yeah, I think I use these types of tools to kind of bring me to an altered state. But what I also try is, of course, like regular meditation, where I just think of nothing and just listen to my breathing and just. But quite often I fall asleep. I'm not very enlightened.
Falling asleep is restful. I think it's really important for the nervous system, actually.
It's funny because I met a lady at an event recently, and she was a teacher, or she is a teacher for astral travel.
Yeah.
So what she does for a living is teaching people how to leave the body and hang out on other places. It's very interesting.
I've started studying that as well. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, the first step towards that is lucid dreaming.
Yeah. Are you able to do that a little bit?
Yes. It's funny because when you so the way to recognize whether you're dreaming or not is like one of the easiest ways is to look at your fingers. And usually, for some reason, when you're dreaming, you have 6 fingers. For some reason.
Really?
I don't know why, but it's like you have 6 fingers. And when you see that, then you're dreaming. And then you can manifest stuff. Then you can start like, hey, let's manifest a Ferrari. And then it can appear. But I then, like, what happens to me quite often, once I realize that I'm dreaming and I start manifesting cool stuff like flying around or any types of fun stuff, then I start waking up, and that's a pity. So that's kind of where I'm stuck.
That's so cool. But did you've gotten to that point?
Yeah, but the thing with the fingers is real. It's really real.
I've never
known. You have
like
it looks a bit crippled. Like the 6th finger is kind of like very short and looks very weird.
That's wow. That's fascinating.
So what you could do is get in the habit of checking your hand. And if you see 5 fingers, then you know, okay, I'm conscious. This is not a dream. But if you see this, when you see this, then you know, okay, I can manifest stuff.
That's so cool. Are you going to be working with this lady to study?
I know she has a Mind Valley course, and I wanted to take a look at that course. And she's actually the second person I met teaching astral traveling. The first one is a guy, like I was in Peru in the Sacred Valley in Machu Picchu. I think it was.
That's on my bucket list.
It was 2014 or so. And I met a guy, a hacker, who used to work for the British government for their Secret Service. He's like a security specialist, and his job is to try to break into their systems in person, meaning social engineering, but also with his computer. He had this funny antenna where he showed me like all the passwords of all the people in the like for fun. He showed me like his art, if I can call it art, and he showed me, oh, now this person is on that website, and these are the passwords, and this person is there, and he showed me the whole list. It was kind of fun. But he was not like a black hat hacker. He was a white hat, so he just showed it like for demonstration purposes. And he had this funny antenna, and through this antenna, his computer was pretending to be the Wi-Fi hotspot, which is kind of funny. But this guy, I was like, hey, what do you do in your free time? He was like, yeah, I teach people to do astral traveling, out-of-body experiences and stuff. And I was asking, did you ever travel to the White House? He was like, yeah, I tried. The thing is just, it didn't work because the White House, they have like astral soldiers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have astral guards, so you cannot just hang out and check what the president's doing. Can't do that.
A friend of mine, Elizabeth April, who's very well known, she's an influencer, but she astral travels a lot, and she talks about it, in her YouTube videos and things. And she'll astral travel to certain places. And she'll say like certain places she can't always get into because there are astral guards and stuff. It's a whole nother universe, that kind of travel. And the beings that have learned to do that. So that, yeah, fascinating. It's so, I love all of that.
So did she also try to go to the White House, or?
She's gone to various places. She didn't talk about the White House, but
okay,
there have been places that she's gone to where she's said that it's been difficult to get in further or deeper. I think there's been a lot of conversation about CERN recently, and I think she went there recently, was able to observe some things. But again, there's a lot of places that, sometimes that people are trying to go to that are a little hard to get into because of that. I do know some people who astral travel, but they also cloak themselves when they astral travel so that they can kind of, if they're in an invisibility cloak when they astral travel, they can kind of get by some of that. It just depends on the level of astral security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you tried it yourself?
I started doing a process where you wake up at 4:40 in the morning. This is the Mayan technique that I've learned from my dear friend Jose, where you wake up at 4:40 in the morning and you take a few minutes to choose where you want to go to astral travel. But I had a hard time with it because I have a history of migraines, and when I don't get enough sleep, I get migraines, and so I started getting migraines a lot because I wasn't getting enough sleep. So I think that specific technique is not the technique for me. So I'm sort of looking for teachers right now and looking for the, to complement those techniques.
Cool.
Yeah, if you know of, I would be.
Maybe I can connect you with that lady.
Yeah, I would love that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. Again, like you said, even in our being able to perceive, things. And I do think that in this 3-dimensional world, which has so much to offer and is so beautiful, but there's also other aspects, that we don't see with the naked eye, but is just as real.
Yeah, and it's both imaginable, whether we're in quote reality or in a video game. It's kind of both. Like for both scenarios, it's entirely possible that we're, that there are different dimensions that we can, travel and I read a book recently. It's from Robert Monroe. It's a classic. Maybe you know it.
I know of Robert Monroe, but I've never read him.
It's very interesting. You should read it. It's very scientific. It's called Journeys Out of the Body.
Ooh.
And he's all scientific about it. He's like, okay, experiment number 1. I'm doing this. This is the time. This is what I'm trying to achieve. So I'm trying to find out who's in this room. And he's very scientific about it.
Robert Monroe.
Yeah, like Marilyn Monroe, just Robert Monroe.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm gonna see if he has any books on Audible.
Oh yeah, it's on Audible. Yeah, I have it. I have the Audible book.
I'm gonna get that.
It's very cool.
Robert Monroe books.
Yeah, and he also has he has stuff. It's called binaural beats or something.
Yeah.
In which he does like hemisphere synchronizing, and then by synchronization, then you can achieve that a little bit easier. And for your migraines, I would encourage you to study biohacking, because there's a lot of stuff that we eat that are in our, let's say, Western diets that are harmful.
Yeah, I've limited my diet now because I've done so much research into everything that's harmful. And I've started drinking like specific alkaline and spring water, and because water is so important. And I've started wearing these stem cell patches, Sven.
Really?
I don't know if you've heard of LifeWave or X39, but they're they've actually gotten rid of my migraines after 20 years. It's the one thing that has been able to do that. There's been a lot of experimenting done with injecting stem cells into the human body to help grow them, but it has not been very successful, and it's very expensive. And a man named David Schmidt, who is a scientist and a brilliant scientist, he said it was a download. Actually, he said he received this information and created these crystalline little patches that you can put on your body. That so the way the body creates vitamin D is through the sun, right? So if we expose ourselves to the sun, we don't have to take vitamin D supplements because the sun literally triggers the body to create its own vitamin D. And he created patches that reflect the light in the body that help the body to actually create, grow stem cells and lengthen the telomeres of stem cells, so that it's literally healing the organs and regrowing stem cells in the organs, in the skin, everywhere in the body. And I have friends who have been using these stem cell patches, and they've gotten rid of arthritis. I got rid of migraines. I got rid of all of this inflammation, and taking away a lot of shitty processed food. And, I know people whose skin has been gotten younger, people who've literally their cancer cells have diminished. There's so much. Yeah, it's fascinating technology. And he's very much into, he believes that if we live in a healthy way and a healthy diet and get rid of all these toxins that have been fed to us in our culture and everything, and we, use technologies like the stem cells, that he believes we can easily live to be 120 and very possibly 250. So I've been.
How can I get those patches?
Oh, I can connect you with someone who.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll connect offline, and
sure.
You would love them. I've had friends who've had friends who don't sleep start sleeping. I mean, they're extraordinary. And again, they're extraordinary. It's extraordinary science that's become available. They've changed my life, actually. Yeah, I'll when we get off there, it's. If people want to know more, they can get on my my Instagram and contact me, and I can give people information. I'm just very excited about them. But I can connect you with somebody.
Yeah.
I have a woman in Maui, who helped me get started with them, and she's brilliant.
That's so cool, because I believe there's a lot of, let's say, not yet popularized technology that can improve health by a lot, other than, let's say, traditional Western medicine or Western school medicine. And this also one reason why I started doing the Wim Hof method, because I wanted to get rid of inflammation and fatigue and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, you have to try these patches. They're remarkable. I've never experienced anything like them, and I've been exploring a lot of alternative health because of the migraines for 20 years. And this is they're remarkable technology. Yeah.
Have you discovered anything else? That's really cool.
Well, there are people. In the culture, there's people are starting to talk about med beds.
Oh yeah,
and there are some that they're starting to show up in different centers around the planet. There's one in Los Angeles and Newport Beach. I've forgotten the name of it, but I have a friend who started going there.
Seriously, because they're med beds. I read about them in some Telegram groups about exopolitics and stuff like that, but. I've seen a lot of pictures of them. So they actually exist. They're available.
This might not be, the really, really high tech. There's the ones that they talk about in science fiction, which, as everybody knows, the stuff that's talked about in science fiction is usually very connected to something real.
Yeah.
But people think it's fiction, but it's actually, a lot of this technology exists in the world, but it's been hidden from us. But there's a lot of iterations of med beds, like the ones that will exist in the future that will be able to grow back limbs and stuff like that. Those haven't come out publicly yet, and probably won't for a while. But the ones that can, grow stem cells, that can, diminish cancer, that can, reestablish mental health, that can, fix heart, that can, balance a lot of the bodily systems, through various technologies are becoming available to the public.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I can send you a link to that as
yes,
well.
please.
Yeah.
This
They
is
should have
so
one.
interesting.
I believe they have one in Germany or Switzerland or somewhere. They have them in various places on the planet right now. I know they have one in New Jersey. I think that they have one in Newport Beach, not far from me. I haven't had a chance to go yet, but I have friends who have gone.
Oh, really? What did they say about it? About the experience and before, after?
There's another kind of medbed with Tesla technology that I have tried that's actually in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And that one I've done several times, and I literally felt like I was floating. It was like my bodily systems were kind of, when you get into a really nice car, like a Jaguar or something, and there's something about it almost hums or purrs.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when your body is in a really good place, you kind of feel like it's kind of humming, like it's when you get to a really beautiful place with meditation, it kind of gets to the status where it's like your nervous system relaxes and all of this kind of goes. And it had that experience. And I went there because I had gotten a little bit of Bell's palsy. For some reason, half of my face had gotten a little bit frozen, they told me that it would take up to 3 months for that to go away. And I said, no way, I'm going to heal it faster. And I found out about this particular Tesla medbed in Los Angeles, and I went and laid in it for a couple of sessions. And that, with a couple other techniques, it went away right away. I also have a friend who is a medical intuitive. Her name is Kimberly Meredith, and she had several near-death experiences. And when she came back into her body, she was told that she would have the experience to help heal people. And so she is actually able to scan somebody's body and see what's going on in the body with the exact accuracy of an MRI machine. So they've done tests with her where they'll bring somebody to her, she'll scan their body, and she'll say, okay, I see something with the thyroid, a lump in the thyroid, or I see, these bones are, there was an accident and there's, this bone that's not quite healed, and she can scan the whole thing. And then they would put the person into a med bed. I mean, not a med bed, an MRI. And the MRI would detect the exact same thing. She does a lot of healing online, but she also lives in Los Angeles. So she's helped me a lot as well. And I have a friend, she removed a cancer tumor from her. I mean, there's so much available, Sven. It's just, and I love that it's like becoming more and more like you and I can talk about this on a podcast. Whereas, 5-10 years ago, we would have had this conversation and people would have been like, but I think people are more and more open to it and more curious about it.
Yes, there is a lot more weirdness in the world, but also a lot more cool stuff that's okay to talk about nowadays.
Yeah,
actually, Oh, that's so fascinating. I've never met anyone I've met several people talking about med beds, but I've never met anyone actually having been there and having used it. It's very interesting.
I'll send you the information, and you can even put it up. You can attach it at the bottom. All the information we're talking about, I can send you all the links to all these people and all of these, and you can put it for your audience so they can research it as well.
Cool. Thank you so much. That's amazing. That was an amazing conversation. I have one more question. In your Instagram, you mentioned that you're Pleiadian. Can you tell me more about that, please?
Um, yeah, it's kind of in French they say un clin d'œil, a little wink. Um,
Yeah.
you know, they're an extraterrestrial population that have been said to come down and incarnate as humans very often. And you know, we've all heard of the Pleiadian star system. There's a Sirian star system, and the Dogon star, and the Pleiadian star system. And I've just, and I, you know, I have friends who, you know, or not friends or acquaintances who kind of can channel these populations. And there's a lot of research that's been done about them. I also believe that it's arrogant to think that humans are the only living life
Yeah.
in the galaxy. I think that's completely arrogant. And that I also think that we are also descended from a lot of different populations around the galaxy. You know, we're not just human, but we have other components. And ever since I heard about, when I was 20, I heard about the Pleiades and that star system. It was this part of me. I was like E.T. I was like, home. And so I don't know if I'm really a Pleiadian or not. I mean, but I connect with the stories about them, and I feel a heart connection to, you know, who they are. And so I put that there. You know, I have a lot of different audiences. I have some audiences who are just really into anime. And I have a lot of and other different audiences who are really into video games. I have other audiences who follow me because I'm a dialect coach. And they love to learn the stuff I teach as a dialect coach. And then I have other audiences who just follow me because of my TV and film career. So I have this really cool combination. And then I have this other audience that is kind of this quiet underground population who are interested in the things that we happen to be talking about today. You know, meditation and astral travel and, you know, the evolution of this planet and of our species and what's possible and, you know, the other parts of our brain that we're not using and, you know, the heart connections and, you know, I have an audience of, you know, who might call themselves star seeds, you know, who feel like they're here to bring more light and share more light, you know. And so I kind of, in my bio and also just in what I share, I try and and I'm a part of all of those. Like I'm a part of all of those, you know, worlds. So I kind of try and enjoy bringing those worlds together. And I put that on there as a little smile and a wink to the people who sort of know what that is. So like you went, huh?
Yeah, with me, it was like for fun, I did like a few years ago, I did an Akashic reading.
I have friends who do that. I love those. Yeah, tell me.
And one of the things the lady said was that in some past life I was a Pleiadian, which she said.
I've been told that as well. So, yes.
That's why I was just curious about.
That's so
you're
cool.
Pleiadian. That's interesting. But I don't know much about Pleiadians. I haven't really looked into it. But
there are books and stuff. Yeah.
Can you characterize them? Do you know anything about them?
I think I would be remiss to put them in a box right now on this because I mean they're a little bit like people on Earth. There's a lot of different races within the Pleiadians actually, but they're you know, some people say that they are just a few timelines ahead of us. And that they've perhaps evolved a bit more. So they're not in a hard 3D existence, but they're able to live in other dimensions as well. They have a higher access to higher technology. Some people say that they're, you know, off planet kind of helping Earth, have shared some of their technology with us and helping us evolve. But because we are a free, what's the word? Not free choice, free will.
Yeah, we have free will.
Planet. They can't, no off planet can impose their technology on us, or because that's sort of one of the aspects of this video game that we live in, that it is free will, right?
It is.
So yeah, there's research that can be done about them. And there's just, for me, there's a heart connection to them. When people talk about them, I just feel like I feel a connection, you know, and maybe that little connection is why we just suddenly popped online and connected together. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we're both curious, open-minded, human beings that like are enjoying connecting in this way. I don't know. But I can give you a couple of resources to check into. Yeah,
that would be great. Thank you. You also swam with dolphins, right?
Yes. How do you know all of this?
I mean, you posted it on Instagram. So
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to stalk you, but
I
have to prepare.
I love that. I love that things that I posted are compelling. I also, it's just something about me. I feel more at home in the water than I feel a little awkward on the ground. And when I'm in the water, I just go like, I feel like I'm home. I swim every day. Like, this is early in the morning for me, our podcast. So when we get done, I'll probably either go to the ocean or the pool.
That's why you wrote Mermaid on
Mermaid,
Pleiadian.
Yeah.
Next to Pleiadian, right?
Yeah, my friends call me a mermaid because I love to be in the water. And
I mean, you have red hair like Ariel.
Aw. Yeah, that's where I do my meditations. Like every morning I either get to the ocean or the pool, and it's the same thing. Everything gets really quiet. And I feel the water, moving against my skin, and I hear it's sort of, that's where I kind of connect, and I disconnect from blah, or I work through that, I've been struggling with. I'm like swimming and I'm like, oh, this person said this to me, and or sometimes I just go through the water and it gets really, really quiet. And I love swimming in the ocean because I love being tumbled around in the waves. I love, not having that kind of control and just letting myself be kind of liquid like the water. And I've had quite a few experiences now in my life where I've had the opportunity to be in close proximity to dolphins in the water. And I've had that same experience, going back to what we talked about earlier in the podcast, where time and space just stopped. A couple times when I've been in proximity to them, it's like everything is like, and all of a sudden it's like time and space. It's super, super magical. It's remarkable. Yeah. Yeah. So I've had that honor to be in proximity in the water to dolphins.
I did that too. It was in kind of a dolphin park thing in Mexico. However, I perceived that the dolphins weren't really super comfortable there because they're in captivity. They were held in captivity, and I was like, okay, so that's why I could not really I could not open myself up to really engage with them, because it felt like a little bit as if I was exploiting them, which I didn't really want to. But yeah, but it was very interesting to kind of see them from so close and have this encounter with them.
That's fun. That says so much about you, that you felt that dissonance from them being in captivity, and that like creature respect that you didn't want to. That says so much about you. That's like, whoa.
Oh, thank you. What's also interesting is that I also like the water a lot, and I like on my social media I did a lot of shoots underwater. I can show it to you. Here, this is me.
Oh my
for
gosh!
Example. This is
Sven,
funny, right?
I don't know why I didn't even bother to. I watched some of your podcasts, but I didn't follow you on Instagram.
You see that?
Oh my gosh, we have so much in common. That is spectacular.
Thank you.
How did you, I want to do that. Ben, can you say your Instagram out loud so I can find you right
Yeah.
away?
SVENPLATTE.
SVENPLA
Double
T.
TE. E.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. You're even more badass than I thought when I first started figuring out who you are. I am so honored to be in connection with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Is this you?
Yes, that's me.
That's extraordinary. Where was that? Oh,
In
this is
Mexico.
so beautiful.
Glad you like it.
Oh, I want to come to Switzerland and hang out together, or when you come to
Sure.
LA, to
Yeah, I
I'll take
do
you
come
to.
to LA sometimes.
We do. We'll go to Malibu and we'll go swimming together.
It's cool.
Malibu.
Yeah, I would love to.
Wow, I'm gonna spend some time in your Instagram. These are beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
God, Sven. Wow, you are a beautiful human. Ah,
Thanks a
it's fun
lot.
too because you've done a little bit like what I've had. You've taken all these aspects and
Yeah.
brought them into, and isn't that wonderful? Like, just to say out loud, this is so beautiful.
Thank you.
That we can have all of these aspects of ourselves and bring them together in one lifetime. Like you can be this hugely successful entrepreneur and this beautiful, quiet, monk at the same time. And this water creature. Isn't it beautiful that we can be all these things?
Yeah, and it's very nice that it's acceptable nowadays, right?
Yeah. I feel like as an actor, I couldn't talk about a lot of these things before, and I just had to talk about acting, and I would get, in my video games and the characters that I've done, and I do feel that something is opening up, and that we really can bring all of these aspects of ourselves together, and that people are hungry for it. People want this, like entrepreneurs, and people want to be able to touch into all these different aspects of ourselves, and
yes,
not feel like we have to be one or the other.
Yeah, because they exist. The thing is, these aspects exist, and life is so much more than just accumulating wealth and stuff or having fun and pleasure. It's so much more. There's so many more facets that don't cost money even. They just cost some thought and some time and some focus, and you can have a very enriched life. So Karen, thank you so much for all that information. If someone wants to learn more about you and follow you, how can they do that the best?
I think the best way is through Instagram. That's sort of I am starting to put videos. I'll be, with my coaching and stuff, I'll be putting more and more videos up on YouTube and stuff. I have a YouTube channel, which is sort of underserved right now. I'm going to try and populate that a little bit better. But I tend to be most present on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter. But I tend to be most present. I think my posts are most interesting on Instagram. And you can follow me there and DM me there. Also, I have a website, which is www.karenstrassman.com. And also, if people want to coach with me, I do a lot of voiceover workshops and accent workshops, and I coach privately as well. I coach clients around the world, people who want to lose their accents or learn accents, learn to be a voiceover actor. I have a waiting list of about 40 people right now. But
that's amazing.
We can put people on my waiting list, or if people have auditions, I also coach auditions.
You could totally help me reduce my German accent.
If you wanted to. I mean, I think your accent is charming and beautiful, but I would, if you wanted to reduce it, I would be very, you're talking, you're talking like more like this, and I would just help you drop it more into your chest.
Yeah,
talk a little bit more down here, which would be super fun to do. But your accent is charming, so
Thank you.
don't need to lose it. So yeah, my Instagram is at Karen Strassman. My website is www.karenstrassman.com. Twitter is at Karen Strassman. YouTube is Karen Strassman. And you can also go on IMDb and see all my credits and all the video games and anime and all that stuff. And I'm all over the internet, depending on what you're interested in. You can, Google me and anime and lots will come up. And a lot of my television stuff is on TV and the movie theater and stuff like that.
Nice. Karen, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation and was very inspiring. And I'm already looking forward to the next one.
Me too. Thank you so much, Sven.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode of Svencast again.